Question 1. Compliance review shows that certain J.B. Hunt dispatch and scheduling processes may be inadvertently leading to drivers exceeding mandated driving time limits. To address this, which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional responsibility? Option A. Immediately revise dispatch and scheduling software to prioritize faster route planning and reduced idle times, assuming this will resolve the issue. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive audit of current dispatch and scheduling procedures, comparing them directly against Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) hours of service, hose regulations, and implement necessary modifications to ensure compliance. Option C. Rely on driver reports of being almost over their limits to make minor adjustments to future schedules without a formal review of the underlying processes. Option D. Assume that the current scheduling system, which has been in place for several years, is compliant and only make changes if a formal citation is received. Correct answer is A. Immediately revise dispatch and scheduling software to prioritize faster route planning and reduced idle times, assuming this will resolve the issue. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to safety regulations. J.B. Hunt, as a major transportation company, operates under a complex web of federal regulations designed to ensure public safety and driver well-being. A failure to comply can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and most importantly, endanger lives. The pressure to optimize processes for cost savings and speed must never override the non-negotiable requirements of regulatory compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing J.B. Hunt operational procedures against the specific mandates of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) regulations. This means identifying any gaps or deviations and implementing corrective actions that bring the processes into full compliance. This approach is right because it directly addresses the identified compliance issue by prioritizing regulatory adherence, which is a fundamental ethical and legal obligation for any transportation company. The FMCSA hours of service, hose, rules, for example, are designed to prevent driver fatigue, a major cause of accidents. Any process that inadvertently leads to HOS violations is inherently unsafe and non-compliant. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that focuses solely on expediting delivery times without a corresponding review of FMCSA regulations risks creating or perpetuating noncompliance. This is ethically and legally unacceptable because it prioritizes profit over safety and regulatory obligations. It could lead to drivers exceeding legal driving limits, falsifying logs, or operating vehicles that are not properly maintained, all of which are serious violations. An approach that relies on informal driver feedback without cross-referencing it with FMCSA regulations is also problematic. While driver input is valuable for understanding operational challenges, it cannot be the sole determinant of compliance. Drivers may not be fully aware of all regulatory nuances, or their feedback might inadvertently suggest practices that, while seemingly efficient, violate specific FMCSA rules. An approach that assumes existing processes are compliant without a proactive review is negligent. Compliance is not a static state. Regulations evolve, and operational realities change. A passive approach risks overlooking subtle but critical noncompliance issues that could have significant consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should adopt a proactive and systematic approach to compliance. This involves establishing clear internal policies that explicitly reference FMCSA regulations, conducting regular audits of operational procedures, providing comprehensive training to all relevant personnel on compliance requirements, and implementing robust tracking and reporting mechanisms. When a compliance issue is identified, the immediate priority must be to understand the specific regulatory requirement being violated and to implement corrective actions that ensure future adherence, even if it requires adjustments to efficiency targets. Question 2. Governance review demonstrates that J.B. Hunt is seeking to optimize its fleet maintenance scheduling to reduce downtime and operational costs. Which of the following approaches best balances efficiency gains with strict adherence to U.S. Department of Transportation regulations concerning vehicle safety and inspection requirements? Option A. Focus on reducing the frequency of preventative maintenance checks to lower immediate costs, assuming that most vehicles are operating within acceptable safety parameters. Option B. Adopt a just-in-time maintenance strategy based on general industry benchmarks for vehicle longevity, without a specific review of J.B. Hunt's operational data against FMCSR requirements. Option C. Implement a predictive maintenance system that leverages real-time data analytics to anticipate potential mechanical failures, ensuring that maintenance is scheduled proactively to minimize unexpected breakdowns and comply with all FMCSR inspection mandates. Option D. Prioritize scheduling maintenance during off-peak hours, even if it means slightly delaying routine inspections to accommodate urgent repair needs, thereby maximizing vehicle availability. The correct answer is C. Implement a predictive maintenance system that leverages real-time data analytics to anticipate potential mechanical failures, ensuring that maintenance is scheduled proactively to minimize unexpected breakdown and comply with all FMCSR inspection mandates. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because J.B. Hunt, as a large transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, must adhere to a complex web of federal and state regulations governing its operations, including those related to driver hours, vehicle maintenance, and safety protocols. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that not only improve efficiency and reduce costs, but also ensure unwavering compliance with these stringent regulatory frameworks. Failure to do so can result in significant fines, operational disruptions, reputational damage, and potential legal liabilities. Careful judgment is required to balance business objectives with the imperative of regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing operational processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing and implementing changes that demonstrably improve performance while maintaining or enhancing compliance with all applicable U.S. Department of Transportation regulation, including the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR. This approach is right because it directly addresses the core objective of process optimization within the specific regulatory context of J.B. Hunt's operations. By focusing on data-driven analysis and ensuring that any proposed changes are vetted against regulatory requirements, the company mitigates risk and ensures sustainable improvements. This aligns with the ethical obligation of a company to operate lawfully and safely. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing cost reduction above all else, even if it means potentially circumventing or loosely interpreting existing safety and operational regulations. This is ethically and regulatorily unacceptable because it directly violates the FMCSR and could lead to unsafe operating conditions, driver fatigue, and increased accident risk, all of which are strictly prohibited and carry severe penalties under U.S. law. Another incorrect approach is to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or industry best practices from other sectors, without a thorough assessment of their compatibility with J.B. Hunt's specific operational environment and the governing U.S. transportation regulations. This is flawed because it risks introducing inefficiencies or, more critically, non-compliance with specific DOT mandates that might not be addressed by generic best practices. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on technological upgrades without considering the human element and the impact on driver workflow and compliance. While technology can be a powerful tool for optimization, if it is implemented without proper training or consideration for how it affects drivers' ability to comply with hours of service rules or pre-trip inspection requirements, it can inadvertently create new compliance challenges. This approach fails to integrate the technological solution within the broader regulatory and operational context. Professional reasoning. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the current regulatory landscape. This involves consulting relevant U.S. DOT regulations and any applicable state-specific transportation laws. When considering process optimizations, the primary filter should always be regulatory compliance. Any proposed change must be evaluated for its impact on safety, driver hours, vehicle maintenance, and other regulated areas. A risk assessment should be conducted for each proposed optimization, identifying potential compliance gaps and developing mitigation strategies. Furthermore, involving legal and compliance departments early in the process ensures that all proposed changes are vetted from a regulatory perspective before implementation. This proactive, compliance-first approach is essential for responsible and sustainable business operations within the highly regulated transportation industry. Question 3. Upon reviewing J.B. Hunt's current operational workflows for freight movement, which approach to process optimization would best align with regulatory compliance and ethical operational standards? Option A. Implement a standardized, universal process improvement model across all J.B. Hunt routes and service types, assuming that a single approach will yield consistent efficiency gains regardless of specific operational contexts. Option B. Introduce a cutting-edge logistics management software across all J.B. Hunt divisions without prior pilot testing or a thorough review of its compatibility with existing regulatory reporting requirements. Option C. Prioritize immediate cost-saving measures by reducing staffing levels in dispatch and customer service departments, even if it potentially impacts response times and service quality. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current operational data to identify specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Then implement targeted technological solutions and procedural adjustments based on this analysis. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current operational data to identify specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies, then implement targeted technological solutions and procedural adjustments based on this analysis. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a logistics company like J.B. Hunt by requiring the identification of the most effective process optimization strategy within a specific regulatory context. The challenge lies in balancing operational efficiency with compliance, ensuring that any proposed improvements do not inadvertently violate established regulations or ethical standards governing transportation and logistics. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both beneficial to the company and legally sound. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a data-driven analysis of existing workflows to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted technological solutions and procedural adjustments. This method is justified by its adherence to principles of continuous improvement, which are implicitly encouraged by regulatory frameworks that aim for safe and efficient transportation operation. By focusing on measurable outcomes and systematic review, this approach ensures that changes are not only effective, but also sustainable and compliant with any relevant transportation regulations that might govern operational standards or data handling. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a new, unproven technology without thorough testing or understanding of its impact on existing compliant processes is an incorrect approach. This could lead to unforeseen operational disruptions or, more critically, introduce non-compliance with regulations that govern the use of technology in transportation, such as data security or operational reporting requirements. Focusing solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on service quality or regulatory adherence is also an incorrect approach. Many transportation regulations are in place to ensure safety and reliability, and cost-cutting measures that compromise these aspects can lead to violations and penalties. Adopting a one-size-fits-all optimization strategy across all J.B. Hunt operations without considering the unique characteristics and regulatory environments of different routes or service types is an incorrect approach. This overlooks the nuanced requirements of various transportation sectors and could result in non-compliance with specific regional or operational regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first understanding the current operational landscape and the applicable regulatory framework. A systematic approach involving data collection, analysis of bottlenecks, and consideration of technological and procedural solutions is paramount. Before implementing any changes, a thorough risk assessment, including regulatory compliance checks, should be conducted. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that enhance efficiency while upholding safety, security, and all legal and ethical obligations. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of implemented changes are also crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 4. Quality control measures reveal a potential bottleneck in J.B. Hunt's current dispatch process that is causing minor delays in driver assignments. A proposal has been put forth to streamline this process by allowing dispatchers to bypass a mandatory pre-assignment safety checklist review for certain types of loads, with the expectation that drivers will complete this review independently before departure. Option A. Implement the proposed change immediately to improve dispatch efficiency, with a note to drivers to complete the safety checklist. Option B. Rely on driver feedback to confirm the efficiency gains and assume the safety checklist will be completed without formal verification. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the proposed process change with the J.B. Hunt Safety and Compliance Departments to ensure it meets all Department of Transportation regulations and internal safety standards before implementation. Option D. Temporarily implement the change for a trial period and monitor for any reported safety incidents, without explicit consultation with safety and compliance teams. The correct answer is A. Implement the proposed change immediately to improve dispatch efficiency, with a note to drivers to complete the safety checklist. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires J.B. Hunt to balance the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of process changes on safety and compliance. A hasty decision without thorough evaluation could lead to regulatory violations, increased risk of accidents, and damage to the company's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization aligns with federal transportation regulations and ethical operational standards. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the proposed process change by the safety and compliance departments. This ensures that any optimization does not inadvertently compromise safety protocols or violate Department of Transportation regulations, such as those pertaining to driver hours of service, vehicle maintenance, or cargo security. By involving these departments, J.B. Hunt demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence and a proactive stance on risk management, which is a cornerstone of responsible logistics operations. This aligns with the overarching goal of maintaining a safe and compliant transportation network. An approach that prioritizes speed and cost reduction without adequate safety and compliance review is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to violations of DOT regulations, such as exceeding mandated driver hours, which carries significant penalties and poses a direct safety risk. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on driver feedback without independent verification of safety and compliance implications, risks overlooking critical regulatory requirements that drivers may not be fully aware of or equipped to assess. This could result in a process that is perceived as efficient by drivers, but is actually non-compliant and unsafe. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core objective: process optimization. This should be immediately followed by a risk assessment, specifically evaluating potential impacts on safety, compliance, and operational integrity. Cross-functional collaboration, involving departments like safety, compliance, operations, and driver management, is crucial. Any proposed change must then undergo a thorough review against relevant regulations and company policies before implementation. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential post-implementation to ensure ongoing adherence and identify any unforeseen issues. Question 5. The control framework reveals that J.B. Hunt's dispatch team is experiencing increased pressure to meet tight delivery schedules, leading to concerns about potential driver hours of service hose violations. To address this, management is considering several strategies. Which of the following strategies best aligns with U.S. Department of Transportation regulations and promotes a culture of safety and compliance within J.B. Hunt? Option A. Implementing a system where drivers are primarily responsible for manually tracking their HOS and are encouraged to find ways to extend their available driving time to meet schedules. Option B. Focusing solely on optimizing route planning to reduce transit times, assuming that drivers will naturally manage their HOS within the legal limits without additional oversight or training. Option C. Allowing dispatchers to override ELD data when necessary to meet delivery deadlines, with the understanding that drivers will adjust their logs later to reflect the actual driving time. Option D. Investing in advanced electronic logging device, ELD, technology that automatically records driving time, coupled with comprehensive driver training on HOS rules and proactive management review of potential violations. The correct answer is A. Implementing a system where drivers are primarily responsible for manually tracking their HOS and are encouraged to find ways to extend their available driving time to meet schedules. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires J.B. Hunt to balance operational efficiency with the stringent requirements of the U.S. Department of Transportation, DOT, regulations concerning driver hours of service, HOS. The pressure to meet delivery schedules can create a temptation to overlook or bend rules, which carries significant legal and safety risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance without compromising service levels. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and addressing potential HOS violations through a combination of technology, driver training, and management oversight. This aligns with the DOT's emphasis on safety and compliance, specifically utilizing electronic logging devices, ELD, that accurately track driving time and providing comprehensive training to drivers on HOS rules, and the proper use of their ELDs are critical. Furthermore, establishing clear internal policies that prioritize compliance over aggressive scheduling, and empowering dispatchers and drivers to communicate potential HOS conflicts early demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes public safety and driver well-being, and it is legally justified by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA regulations. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on driver self-reporting for HOS compliance without robust verification mechanisms. This fails to meet the spirit and letter of ELD mandates, which are designed to prevent falsification and ensure accurate record-keeping. Such an approach creates a significant risk of unintentional or intentional violations, leading to potential fines, penalties, and reputational damage for J.B. Hunt. Another incorrect approach is to pressure drivers to complete deliveries even when it means exceeding HOS limits, with the implicit understanding that they should manage their logs accordingly. This is a direct violation of FMCSA regulations and fosters an unethical work environment. It undermines the purpose of HOS rules, which is to prevent fatigue-related accidents. This practice can lead to severe consequences, including driver disqualification and criminal charges in cases of serious accidents. Finally, an approach that involves ignoring or downplaying reported HOS discrepancies by dispatch or management, assuming drivers will resolve them, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of accountability and a failure to implement effective oversight. It signals to drivers that compliance is not a top priority, increasing the likelihood of violations and jeopardizing the safety of all road users. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and safety. This involves 1. Understanding the specific requirements of FMCSA HOS regulations. 2. Implementing and consistently utilizing technology like ELDs. 3. Providing ongoing, comprehensive training to all relevant personnel. 4. Establishing clear communication channels for reporting and resolving potential compliance issues. 5. Fostering a culture where safety and compliance are paramount, and where employees feel empowered to raise concerns without fear of reprisal. Question 6. Examination of the data shows that J.B. Hunt is experiencing increased operational costs due to extended transit times on certain routes. A team has been tasked with identifying process improvements to enhance efficiency. Which of the following strategies best balances the need for cost reduction with the absolute priority of regulatory compliance and driver safety? Option A. Conducting a thorough analysis of current routes and driver schedules to identify opportunities for consolidation and more efficient load planning, ensuring all proposed changes strictly adhere to Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, regarding driver hours of service and rest periods. Option B. Implementing a new dispatch system that prioritizes shortest route calculation, even if it means drivers may approach their maximum hours of service limits more frequently. Option C. Encouraging drivers to utilize off-duty time for pre-trip inspections to save on-duty time during their scheduled work periods. Option D. Investing in faster trucks that allow drivers to cover more miles within their existing hours of service without re-evaluating the overall route planning or driver scheduling. Correct answer is B. Implementing a new dispatch system that prioritizes shortest route calculations, even if it means drivers may approach their maximum hours of service limits more frequently. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for J.B. Hunt employees tasked with optimizing processes. The core difficulty lies in balancing efficiency gains with the imperative to adhere to all applicable regulations and ethical standards, particularly concerning driver hours and safety. A hasty or purely cost-driven approach to process optimization can inadvertently lead to violations, jeopardizing both the company's compliance and the well-being of its drivers. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes are not only economically beneficial, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that demonstrably improve operational flow without compromising regulatory compliance. This includes a thorough understanding of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, specifically those pertaining to hours of service (HOS) for commercial drivers. Any proposed optimization must ensure that drivers are not pressured or implicitly incentivized to violate HOS limits, which could lead to fatigue-related accidents and significant legal penalties for J.B. Hunt. This approach prioritizes safety and compliance, aligning with the ethical obligation to protect drivers and the public, and the regulatory requirement to operate within legal frameworks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing transit times without considering the impact on driver HOS would be a significant regulatory failure. This could manifest as pressure on drivers to complete routes faster, potentially leading to falsified logs or driving while fatigued, both direct violations of FMCSR. Another incorrect approach might involve implementing new technology that, while seemingly efficient, inadvertently creates a system where drivers are penalized for unavoidable delays that extend their driving time beyond legal limits, thus indirectly encouraging HOS violations. A third incorrect approach could be to overlook the need for driver input in the optimization process, leading to solutions that are impractical or create new safety risks on the road, failing to uphold the ethical responsibility to consider the human element in operational changes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the objectives, followed by a thorough assessment of the current state, including all relevant regulatory requirements. When evaluating potential solutions, a risk-based analysis is crucial, specifically assessing the potential for regulatory non-compliance and safety compromises. Seeking input from all affected stakeholders, including drivers, is essential for developing practical and compliant solutions. Finally, any proposed optimization should undergo a rigorous review process to ensure it meets both efficiency goals and all legal and ethical obligations before implementation. Question 7. Assessment of J.B. Hunt's approach to optimizing its fleet maintenance scheduling to improve vehicle uptime, considering the potential impact on driver availability and adherence to Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) regulations. Option A. Extending the intervals between routine vehicle inspections beyond the minimum requirements set by the FMCSA to increase the number of operational vehicles at any given time. Option B. Implementing a predictive maintenance system that uses real-time vehicle data to schedule maintenance proactively, ensuring compliance with FMCSA inspection requirements and minimizing unscheduled downtime without negatively impacting driver schedules. Option C. Allowing drivers to report maintenance needs only when a critical issue arises, thereby reducing the frequency of scheduled inspections and freeing up vehicles for immediate dispatch. Option D. Outsourcing all maintenance scheduling decisions to third-party mechanics without establishing clear communication channels or oversight regarding FMCSA compliance and J.B. Hunt's specific operational needs. The correct answer is B. Implementing a predictive maintenance system that uses real-time vehicle data to schedule maintenance proactively, ensuring compliance with FMCSA inspection requirements, and minimizing unscheduled downtime without negatively impacting driver schedules. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in logistics and transportation companies like J.B. Hunt, balancing the need for operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. The pressure to meet delivery schedules can sometimes lead to shortcuts that might compromise safety or violate regulations. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that enhance efficiency without introducing new risks or violating established rules. This requires a deep understanding of both operational workflows and the relevant legal and ethical frameworks governing the transportation industry. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of current processes, identifying bottlenecks, and then proposing solutions that are vetted against regulatory requirements and safety standards before implementation. This methodology ensures that any proposed optimization does not inadvertently lead to non-compliance with Department of Transportation regulations, such as those concerning driver hours of service, vehicle maintenance, or cargo security. By prioritizing a thorough risk assessment and regulatory compliance check, J.B. Hunt can achieve process improvements that are sustainable and legally sound, thereby protecting the company, its employees, and the public. This aligns with the ethical obligation to operate safely and responsibly. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or without a formal review process risks overlooking critical regulatory requirements. For instance, a process change that speeds up loading times but bypasses pre-trip inspection protocols would violate DOT regulations and compromise safety. Similarly, focusing only on cost reduction without considering the impact on driver fatigue management could lead to violations of hours of service rules, increasing the risk of accidents and legal penalties. Relying on external consultants without internal validation of their recommendations against specific J.B. Hunt operational realities and U.S. transportation law could also result in impractical or non-compliant solutions. Professional reasoning. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should approach process optimization with a framework that prioritizes data-driven analysis, regulatory adherence, and risk mitigation. This involves 1. Clearly defining the problem or inefficiency, 2. Gathering data on current performance, 3. Brainstorming potential solutions, 4. Conducting a thorough impact analysis, including regulatory compliance checks and safety assessments for each proposed solution, 5. Piloting the most promising solutions, 6. Implementing and continuously monitoring the effectiveness and compliance of the optimized process. This structured approach ensures that efficiency gains are achieved responsibly and sustainably within the legal and ethical boundaries of the transportation industry. Question 8. Which approach would be most effective for J.B. Hunt to optimize its delivery routes while ensuring strict adherence to FMCSA regulations and company safety standards? Option A. Focusing on route selection that avoids toll roads to reduce operational costs without a detailed analysis of the impact on delivery schedules and driver hours. Option B. Relying primarily on experienced drivers' informal suggestions for route adjustments to improve efficiency. Option C. Conducting a thorough review and potential upgrade of existing route planning systems to ensure robust integration of real-time traffic, driver hours of service data, and company safety protocols. Option D. Implementing route optimization software that prioritizes minimizing transit time and mileage, with a secondary check for obvious regulatory conflicts. The correct answer is D. Implementing route optimization software that prioritizes minimizing transit time and mileage, with a secondary check for obvious regulatory conflicts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for J.B. Hunt's logistics team by requiring them to balance operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and ethical considerations in route planning. The core difficulty lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to optimize delivery routes, especially when faced with potential shortcuts that might skirt regulations or compromise safety. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization directly supports J.B. Hunt's commitment to safe and legal operations, rather than simply seeking the fastest or cheapest outcome. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing route planning software and algorithms, focusing on their ability to integrate real-time traffic data, driver hours of service regulations, as governed by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA), and company safety policies. This approach is professionally sound because it directly addresses the need for efficiency while embedding regulatory adherence and safety protocols into the optimization process. The FMCSA regulations, such as those concerning hours of service of drivers, 49 CFR Part 395, are paramount for preventing driver fatigue and ensuring road safety, which are critical for a company like J.B. Hunt. Optimizing routes within these constraints demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and ethical responsibility, minimizing risks of accidents, fines, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on minimizing mileage or transit time, without explicit consideration for driver hours of service regulations, would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would directly violate FMCSA mandates, leading to potential violations, driver fatigue, increased accident risk, and significant penalties for J.B. Hunt. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal driver suggestions for route optimization without a systematic validation process risks overlooking critical safety or regulatory factors. While drivers possess valuable on-the-ground knowledge, their suggestions must be vetted against established regulations and company policies to ensure they do not inadvertently lead to noncompliance or unsafe practices. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction by selecting routes that may be less direct but avoid certain toll roads, without assessing the impact on delivery times and potential strain on drivers to meet deadlines within their legal driving hours, also presents a significant risk. This could indirectly lead to drivers exceeding their allowed hours to compensate for less efficient routes, thereby creating a compliance issue. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of process optimization, ensuring that regulatory compliance and safety are non-negotiable prerequisites. This involves understanding the relevant legal frameworks, such as FMCSA regulation, and integrating them into the design and evaluation of any proposed optimization. A systematic approach, utilizing data analytics and validated software, is crucial. This framework should include a feedback loop where the effectiveness and compliance of optimized routes are continuously monitored and adjusted as needed. Question 9. Implementation of a new route optimization software at J.B. Hunt is intended to reduce transit times and fuel consumption. Which of the following approaches best ensures that this implementation adheres to all relevant U.S. transportation regulations, particularly concerning driver hours of service and safety? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of current J.B. Hunt operations against all applicable U.S. Department of Transportation regulations. Pilot test the software in a controlled environment to identify and address compliance issues, and then proceed with a phased rollout. Option B. Rely on the software vendor's assurances that the system is compliant with all transportation laws and proceed with a full-scale deployment. Option C. Immediately deploy the software across all J.B. Hunt fleets after a brief internal review to maximize early cost savings. Option D. Implement the software and provide drivers with a quick training session on its basic functions, assuming they will adapt their driving habits to meet regulatory requirements. The correct answer is C. Immediately deploy the software across all J.B. Hunt fleets after a brief internal review to maximize early cost savings. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for J.B. Hunt in optimizing its logistics processes. The core difficulty lies in balancing efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain compliance with all applicable transportation regulations, particularly those concerning driver hours of service and safety. A hasty or poorly considered implementation of new technology or procedures could inadvertently lead to violations, risking fines, operational disruptions, and damage to the company's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process improvements do not compromise safety or regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of process optimization, starting with a thorough review of current J.B. Hunt operations against all relevant U.S. Department of Transportation regulations, including the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, concerning hours of service, hose, and electronic logging devices, ELD. This initial assessment ensures that any proposed changes are grounded in a clear understanding of existing legal requirements. Subsequently, pilot testing the optimized processes in a controlled environment allows for identification and mitigation of potential compliance issues before a full-scale rollout. This proactive, compliance-first strategy minimizes the risk of regulatory violations and ensures that efficiency gains are achieved sustainably and legally. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing process changes without a comprehensive review of current DOT regulations risks overlooking critical HOS requirements or ELD mandates, potentially leading to driver fatigue violations or inaccurate record keeping. Prioritizing speed of implementation over thorough compliance checks can result in systems that inadvertently encourage or enable regulatory breaches. Similarly, adopting new technologies or workflows without adequate driver training on their impact on HOS and record-keeping duties creates a significant compliance gap. Drivers may not understand how new processes affect their available driving time or how to accurately log their activities, leading to unintentional violations. Focusing solely on cost reduction without considering the regulatory implications of altered routes or schedules can also lead to noncompliance, as certain operational changes might necessitate adjustments to driver HOS or vehicle maintenance protocols mandated by the FMCSR. Professional reasoning. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance as a foundational element of any process optimization initiative. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape, continuously staying abreast of all applicable federal and state transportation laws, particularly FMCSR. 2. Risk assessment, identifying potential compliance risks associated with any proposed process change. 3. Stakeholder engagement, involving legal counsel, safety officers, and operational staff in the planning and review process. 4. Phased implementation and testing, rolling out changes incrementally with robust monitoring and feedback mechanisms. 5. Continuous improvement, regularly auditing processes to ensure ongoing compliance and identify further optimization opportunities within the regulatory framework. Question 10. Compliance review shows that J.B. Hunt's current driver scheduling and route optimization processes may be leading to extended idle times and potential delays in delivery windows, impacting overall operational efficiency. Considering the company's operations are governed by U.S. federal regulations, which of the following actions represents the most appropriate and compliant approach to address these findings? Option A. Immediately implement new scheduling software that prioritizes minimizing driver idle time and maximizing delivery speed, without prior consultation with the legal or safety departments. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of current scheduling and routing procedures, cross-referencing potential changes with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, and relevant labor laws, and consult with internal legal and safety experts before proposing any modifications. Option C. Instruct dispatchers to encourage drivers to exceed their designated break times to make up for any perceived delays, thereby improving on-time delivery metrics. Option D. Focus solely on driver performance metrics related to delivery speed, incentivizing them to bypass standard procedures if it means meeting tighter deadlines, irrespective of potential regulatory implications. The correct answer is A. Immediately implement new scheduling software that prioritizes minimizing driver idle time and maximizing delivery speed, without prior consultation with the legal or safety departments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because J.B. Hunt, as a transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, is subject to a complex web of federal regulations designed to ensure safety, efficiency, and fair labor practices. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the company's operational goals with its legal and ethical obligations. A compliance review highlighting potential inefficiencies in a critical process requires a response that is not only effective in improving operations, but also strictly adheres to all applicable U.S. federal transportation and labor laws. The pressure to optimize processes quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts that inadvertently violate these regulations, creating significant legal and reputational risks. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven assessment that prioritizes regulatory compliance and employee well-being. This means engaging with relevant internal stakeholders, such as safety officers and HR, and potentially external legal counsel. Understand the precise requirements of regulations like the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, and the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. Any proposed process changes must be evaluated against these frameworks to ensure they do not compromise safety standards, driver hours of service, or wage and hour laws. This methodical, compliance-first strategy mitigates risk and fosters a culture of responsible business conduct. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on perceived efficiency gains, without a comprehensive regulatory review. For instance, altering dispatch procedures to reduce driver downtime without considering the impact on hours of service regulations would be a direct violation of FMCSR, potentially leading to severe penalties, including fines and operational sanctions. Similarly, reclassifying drivers or altering pay structures to reduce labor costs without ensuring compliance with FLSA overtime and minimum wage requirements would expose J. J.B. Hunt to significant legal liabilities and back pay claims. Another flawed approach would be to rely on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without a systematic investigation, as this bypasses the due diligence necessary to identify and address regulatory risks. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with identifying the specific area of concern from the compliance review. This should be followed by a detailed research phase to understand all applicable U.S. federal regulations. Next, potential solutions should be brainstormed, with each solution being rigorously vetted for its compliance implications. Collaboration with legal and compliance departments is crucial. Finally, the chosen solution should be implemented with clear communication and ongoing monitoring to ensure sustained compliance and operational effectiveness. Question 11. During the evaluation of J.B. Hunt's recruitment process for truck drivers, a team identifies that the time from application submission to job offer is significantly longer than industry benchmarks. To address this, the team proposes several strategies to expedite the process. Which of the following strategies best aligns with a responsible and compliant approach to process optimization for J.B. Hunt? Option A. Conducting a comprehensive analysis of each stage in the current hiring workflow to identify specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then developing targeted compliant solutions to address them. Option B. Reducing the number of required interview stages and background check components to accelerate the decision-making timeline. Option C. Implementing a streamlined application review system that prioritizes candidates based on predefined keywords and reduces the number of initial screening interviews. Option D. Empowering hiring managers to bypass standard HR pre-screening and directly schedule final interviews for any applicant they deem potentially suitable. The correct answer is C. Implementing a streamlined application review system that prioritizes candidates based on predefined keywords and reduces the number of initial screening interviews. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and ethical considerations within the context of J.B. Hunt's hiring practices. The pressure to fill positions quickly can lead to shortcuts that might inadvertently violate fair hiring laws or ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization efforts do not compromise the integrity of the hiring process or expose the company to legal risks. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing hiring process to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of data-driven improvements that are compliant with all applicable regulations. This approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of delays and inefficiencies before proposing solutions. It ensures that any changes are well considered, tested, and aligned with J.B. Hunt's commitment to fair and lawful employment practices. Regulatory justification stems from the need to adhere to equal employment opportunity laws and other labor regulations that prohibit discriminatory hiring practices and mandate fair treatment of all applicants. Ethical justification lies in treating all candidates with respect and providing a transparent and equitable hiring experience. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of interview stages without assessing the impact on candidate evaluation quality is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to overlooking qualified candidates or hiring unsuitable ones, potentially violating fair hiring principles and increasing turnover. Another incorrect approach that involves prioritizing speed over thorough background checks or reference verification exposes J.B. Hunt to risks associated with negligent hiring, which can have significant legal and financial repercussions. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses established HR protocols or legal review for the sake of expediency undermines the company's internal controls and compliance framework, creating a culture where rules can be disregarded. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem or objective, e.g., optimizing the hiring process. This should be followed by gathering relevant information, including current process metrics and applicable regulations. Next, potential solutions should be brainstormed, and each solution should be evaluated against criteria such as effectiveness, efficiency, cost, and critically, regulatory compliance and ethical implications. The chosen solution should then be implemented, monitored, and adjusted as needed. This iterative process ensures that improvements are sustainable and aligned with organizational values and legal obligations. Question 12. Compliance review shows that J.B. Hunt is exploring new methods to streamline its dispatch and delivery scheduling to reduce transit times and improve on-time delivery rates. Which of the following approaches best balances the company's operational efficiency goals with its obligation to adhere to U.S. federal transportation regulations? Option A. Implementing advanced route optimization software that automatically factors in driver hours of service limitations and rest break requirements based on real-time traffic and delivery schedules. Option B. Adopting a policy that prioritizes meeting customer delivery deadlines above all else, with the understanding that drivers may need to occasionally exceed standard driving hours if necessary. Option C. Reducing the frequency of internal audits for electronic logging device, data, to expedite the review process and focus resources on proactive dispatching. Option D. Encouraging drivers to utilize manual logbooks for tracking their hours, allowing them to make subjective judgments about when to take breaks to meet tight delivery windows. Correct answer is A. Implementing advanced route optimization software that automatically factors in driver hours of service limitations and rest break requirements based on real-time traffic and delivery schedules. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because J.B. Hunt, as a transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, must adhere to a complex web of federal regulations governing its operations, particularly concerning driver hours, safety, and record-keeping. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost reduction with the absolute imperative of regulatory compliance. A failure to do so can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and most importantly, compromise safety for drivers and the public. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process improvements that enhance efficiency without creating loopholes or encouraging noncompliance. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing processes to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of technology and training that directly support and reinforce regulatory adherence. This approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of any inefficiencies and ensuring that proposed solutions are not only effective in improving speed or cost, but are also designed to maintain or enhance compliance with regulations such as the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's FMCSA, Hours of Service, hose rules. By focusing on data-driven insights and integrating compliance checks into the optimized workflow, J.B. Hunt can achieve its process optimization goals responsibly. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the regulatory implications would be to implement a system that encourages drivers to bypass certain logging procedures to save time. This directly violates FMCSA regulations regarding accurate HOS record keeping and could lead to drivers exceeding their legal driving limits, increasing the risk of accidents. Another incorrect approach would be to reduce the number of compliance audits or checks in the name of efficiency. This undermines the oversight necessary to detect and correct potential violations, leaving the company vulnerable to penalties and safety risks. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or driver suggestions for efficiency without verifying their compliance with federal law is also flawed, as it risks adopting practices that are technically efficient but legally unsound. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of all applicable regulations. When considering process optimization, the initial step should be to map current processes and identify areas for improvement. Crucially, each potential improvement must be evaluated against relevant regulatory requirements. This involves consulting with compliance officers, legal counsel, and utilizing available compliance software. The goal is to find solutions that are not only efficient, but are also inherently compliant or can be easily adapted to ensure compliance. Pilot testing and ongoing monitoring are essential to confirm that optimized processes are functioning as intended and remain within regulatory boundaries. Question 13. Performance analysis shows that J.B. Hunt's current loading and unloading procedures at distribution centers are contributing to significant delays, impacting delivery schedules. Which of the following approaches to optimizing these processes would be most professionally responsible and compliant with U.S. transportation regulations? Option A. Reducing the number of trained personnel responsible for overseeing loading and unloading operations to cut labor costs, assuming drivers can manage more of the process themselves. Option B. Developing a streamlined, technology-driven system for real-time tracking of inbound and outbound shipments, coupled with a revised dock assignment protocol that prioritizes carriers based on their adherence to scheduled arrival times and efficient loading/unloading practices, while ensuring compliance with all relevant Department of Transportation and Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) guidelines. Option C. Implementing a new scheduling system that mandates shorter loading windows for all carriers, regardless of their historical performance or specific cargo needs, to increase throughput. Option D. Encouraging drivers to exceed standard hours of service when necessary to complete loading and unloading tasks more quickly, thereby reducing dock congestion. Correct answer is C. Implementing a new scheduling system that mandates shorter loading windows for all carriers, regardless of their historical performance or specific cargo needs, to increase throughput. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because J.B. Hunt, as a transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, must adhere to a complex web of federal and state regulations governing its operation, driver safety, and environmental impact. The pressure to optimize processes for efficiency and cost savings can create a tension with the imperative to maintain compliance and prioritize safety and ethical conduct. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing demands. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing operational workflows, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that not only improve performance, but also align with all applicable U.S. federal and state transportation laws, including those from the Department of Transportation and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA). This includes ensuring that any proposed changes do not inadvertently lead to violations of hours of service regulations, vehicle maintenance standards, or hazardous materials transportation rules. Ethical considerations also demand that process optimization does not compromise driver well-being or public safety. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and cost reduction without considering regulatory implications could lead to violations of hours of service rules, potentially resulting in fatigued drivers and increased accident risk, which is a direct contravention of FMCSA regulations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency in maintenance scheduling over thoroughness could violate DOT vehicle inspection and maintenance requirements, posing safety hazards and leading to penalties. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses established safety protocols for hazardous materials handling, even if it saves time, would violate stringent federal regulations designed to protect the public and the environment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the current regulatory landscape relevant to J.B. Hunt's operations. When evaluating process optimization proposals, they must conduct a risk assessment that explicitly considers potential regulatory noncompliance and safety implications. This involves consulting with legal and compliance departments, seeking expert advice when necessary, and prioritizing solutions that demonstrate a clear path to both improved efficiency and sustained regulatory adherence. The ultimate decision should be guided by a commitment to safety, compliance, and ethical business practices, even if it means a slower or more costly implementation of an optimization. Question 14. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire for faster delivery times across J.B. Hunt's network. Considering the paramount importance of adhering to Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) hours of service (HOS) regulations, which of the following strategies best addresses this feedback while maintaining compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Encourage drivers to extend their on-duty hours beyond the regulated limits when necessary to meet tight delivery schedules. Option B. Implement new tracking software that mandates drivers to complete routes as quickly as possible, regardless of their current HOS status. Option C. Conduct a thorough analysis of current scheduling, routing, and loading/unloading procedures to identify inefficiencies that can be optimized without violating HOS rules. Option D. Continue with existing operational procedures, assuming that current delivery times are acceptable and that stakeholder feedback is not a priority for immediate action. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough analysis of current scheduling, routing, and loading/unloading procedures to identify inefficiencies that can be optimized without violating HOS rules. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because J.B. Hunt, as a logistics and transportation company operating within the United States, must navigate complex federal and state regulations governing driver hours, safety, and operational efficiency. Balancing stakeholder demands for improved delivery times with the imperative to comply with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) regulations, specifically the Hours of Service (HOS) rules, requires careful judgment. Failure to adhere to these regulations can result in significant fines, operational disruptions, and damage to the company's reputation, while also jeopardizing driver safety. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of current operational workflows and driver logs to identify bottlenecks that are not directly caused by HOS limitations, but rather by inefficient scheduling, loading/unloading processes, or route planning. This approach is professionally sound because it seeks to optimize processes within the existing regulatory framework, thereby improving efficiency without compromising compliance. It aligns with the ethical responsibility to ensure driver well-being and safety, which is a core tenet of FMCSA regulations. By focusing on internal process improvements, J.B. Hunt can achieve its business objectives while upholding its legal and ethical obligations. An approach that prioritizes solely expediting delivery times by encouraging drivers to exceed their legally mandated HOS would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This directly violates FMCSA HOS rules, which are designed to prevent driver fatigue and reduce accidents. Another incorrect approach would be to implement new technology without first assessing its impact on driver workload and compliance. Technology should augment, not circumvent, regulatory requirements. Finally, ignoring stakeholder feedback entirely and continuing with existing processes would be a failure to adapt and improve, potentially leading to missed opportunities for efficiency gains and continued dissatisfaction. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the root cause of the stakeholder feedback. This involves gathering data, analyzing current processes, and cross-referencing findings with applicable regulations. When considering solutions, the primary filter should be regulatory compliance and driver safety. Any proposed solution must demonstrably improve efficiency without introducing compliance risks. This iterative process of analysis, solution generation, and validation against regulatory and ethical standards ensures that business objectives are met responsibly. Question 15. Operational review demonstrates recurring delays at J.B. Hunt's cross-docking facilities, impacting delivery timelines. Which of the following approaches best addresses this issue while adhering to U.S. transportation regulations and ethical operational standards? Option A. Immediately reassigning personnel from less busy terminals to the affected facilities to increase throughput, without assessing current staffing levels or potential impacts on other operations. Option B. Reducing the frequency of pre-trip inspections for trucks servicing these routes to expedite departure times, assuming current maintenance records indicate minimal issues. Option C. Implementing a phased approach that involves analyzing current workflow bottlenecks, gathering driver and warehouse staff feedback, evaluating the impact of potential changes on hours of service regulations, and piloting revised procedures. Option D. Prioritizing the fastest possible loading and unloading times by encouraging staff to bypass standard safety checks and documentation procedures to meet aggressive delivery schedules. The correct answer is A. Immediately reassigning personnel from less busy terminals to the affected facilities to increase throughput, without assessing current staffing levels or potential impacts on other operations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in logistics and transportation companies like J.B. Hunt, identifying and implementing process improvements that balance efficiency gains with regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. The professional challenge lies in selecting an approach that not only addresses operational bottlenecks, but also upholds safety standards, labor laws, and customer service expectations, all within the specific regulatory environment governing transportation in the United States. A hasty or ill-considered decision could lead to safety violations, increased operational costs, or damage to the company's reputation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, data-driven analysis that prioritizes safety and regulatory adherence. This means thoroughly investigating the root causes of delays, considering the impact of any proposed changes on driver hours of service regulations, e.g., FMCSA rules, vehicle maintenance schedules, and cargo integrity. It requires engaging with frontline staff, such as drivers and dispatchers, to gather practical insights and ensure proposed solutions are feasible and sustainable. The ultimate goal is to optimize processes in a way that enhances efficiency without compromising safety, compliance, or the well-being of employees, aligning with the overarching mission of responsible transportation operations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes solely based on anecdotal evidence or without a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. For instance, an approach that focuses purely on speed without considering driver fatigue or mandated rest periods directly violates FMCSA regulations designed to prevent accidents. Similarly, cutting corners on pre-trip inspections or maintenance to save time would contravene federal safety standards and could lead to equipment failure and potential harm. An approach that prioritizes cost reduction over safety protocols, such as reducing staffing levels in critical operational areas without assessing the impact on workload and safety, also represents a failure to uphold ethical responsibilities and regulatory mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals at J.B. Hunt should adopt a systematic decision-making process. This begins with clearly defining the problem and gathering relevant data, including operational metrics and feedback from stakeholders. Next, potential solutions should be brainstormed, with a critical evaluation of each against established safety protocols, relevant federal regulations, such as those from the FMCSA, and ethical principles. The chosen solution must be piloted, monitored, and adjusted as needed, ensuring continuous improvement and ongoing compliance. This iterative process, grounded in data and regulatory awareness, fosters responsible and effective operational optimization. Question 16. Process analysis reveals that J.B. Hunt's current dispatching system is experiencing delays in route optimization, leading to extended driver idle times and potential violations of hours of service regulations. Which of the following strategies would best address this issue while ensuring regulatory compliance? Option A. Instructing dispatchers to prioritize shorter routes regardless of traffic condition to reduce overall mileage, even if it means drivers occasionally exceed their allocated driving hours to make up for lost time. Option B. Focusing solely on reducing the number of drivers to decrease operational complexity, assuming this will indirectly improve dispatch efficiency and reduce the likelihood of compliance issues. Option C. Temporarily suspending all route optimization efforts and reverting to manual dispatching to avoid any potential system-related compliance errors while a new system is evaluated. Option D. Implementing a new, advanced dispatch software that integrates real-time traffic data, weather conditions, and predictive analytics to dynamically adjust routes and minimize driver downtime, coupled with comprehensive driver training on the new system and updated compliance protocols. The correct answer is D. Implementing a new advanced dispatch software that integrates real-time traffic data, weather conditions, and predictive analytics to dynamically adjust routes and minimize driver downtime, coupled with comprehensive driver training on the new system and updated compliance protocols. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because J.B. Hunt, as a large transportation and logistics company, operates within a highly regulated environment. Ensuring compliance with various federal and state regulations, particularly those concerning driver hours of service, vehicle maintenance, and safety protocols, is paramount. A failure in process optimization can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and most importantly, safety risks for drivers and the public. The need for deep analysis stems from the interconnectedness of operational processes and their direct impact on regulatory adherence and business sustainability. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven review of existing J.B. Hunt operational workflows to identify bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and areas of non-compliance. This includes engaging with frontline staff, analyzing operational data, and benchmarking against industry best practices and regulatory requirements. The justification for this approach lies in its proactive nature, aiming to prevent issues before they escalate. It aligns with the ethical responsibility of a company to operate safely and legally, and with regulatory frameworks that mandate adherence to specific standards, such as those set by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, for hours of service and vehicle safety. By focusing on root causes and implementing sustainable solutions, This approach ensures long-term compliance and operational excellence. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or immediate cost-saving pressures, without a thorough understanding of the underlying processes and their regulatory implications. For instance, simply reducing driver rest breaks to increase delivery speed would directly violate FMCSA hours of service regulations, leading to severe penalties and safety risks. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt new technology without proper integration or training, potentially creating new inefficiencies or compliance gaps. This demonstrates a failure to consider the comprehensive impact of process changes on regulatory adherence and operational integrity. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the current state, identifying root causes of inefficiencies or noncompliance, evaluating potential solutions against regulatory requirements and business objectives, and implementing changes with robust monitoring and feedback mechanisms. This iterative process ensures that optimizations are not only efficient, but also compliant and sustainable. Question 17. The risk matrix shows a potential conflict between J.B. Hunt's goal of reducing average delivery times by 10% and the possibility of drivers exceeding their mandated hours of service, hose limits due to increased pressure. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge while adhering to U.S. federal transportation regulations? Option A. Implement advanced route optimization software that dynamically adjusts schedules based on real-time traffic and driver availability, with built-in alerts for potential HOS violations that require dispatcher intervention. Option B. Encourage drivers to manage their own HOS logs meticulously and trust their judgment on when to take breaks, emphasizing that meeting the 10% delivery time reduction is the top priority. Option C. Focus on increasing the number of available trucks and drivers to absorb the increased demand, without significantly altering existing dispatching or HOS monitoring protocols. Option D. Negotiate with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, for temporary waivers on HOS regulations for specific routes to accommodate the new delivery time targets. The correct answer is A. Implement advanced route optimization software that dynamically adjusts schedules based on real-time traffic and driver availability, with built-in alerts for potential HOS violations that require dispatcher intervention. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because J.B. Hunt, as a large transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, must navigate complex federal and state regulations governing its operations, particularly concerning driver hours, safety, and operational efficiency. The risk matrix highlights potential conflicts between optimizing delivery times and adhering to regulatory mandates, which can have significant financial and legal repercussions. A failure to balance these competing priorities can lead to violations, fines, and damage to the company's reputation. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated strategy that prioritizes regulatory compliance as a foundational element of process optimization. This means that any proposed optimization must first be vetted against Department of Transportation regulations, specifically the hours of service, hose, rules, to ensure it does not encourage or facilitate violations. By embedding compliance checks into the optimization process, J.B. Hunt can identify and mitigate risks before they materialize. This approach aligns with the ethical responsibility to operate safely and legally, and it is directly supported by federal regulations that hold carriers accountable for driver fatigue and safety. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, mandates strict HOS rules to prevent accidents caused by overworked drivers. Therefore, any process optimization must demonstrably support, or at least not undermine, these safety regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and efficiency without considering HOS limitations would be professionally unacceptable. This would directly violate FMCSA regulations, which are designed to prevent driver fatigue and ensure road safety. Such an approach could lead to drivers exceeding their legal driving limits, resulting in significant fines, potential loss of operating authority, and, most critically, increased risk of accidents. Another incorrect approach that relies on drivers self-reporting their HOS without robust verification mechanisms is also flawed. While drivers are responsible for accurate record-keeping, carriers have a legal and ethical obligation to implement systems that ensure compliance and prevent falsification or unintentional errors. This lack of oversight can lead to violations and exposes J.B. Hunt to liability. Finally, an approach that prioritizes cost reduction by pushing drivers to complete routes faster, even if it means cutting corners on pre-trip inspections or rest breaks, is ethically reprehensible and legally unsound. This demonstrates a disregard for driver well-being and public safety, directly contravening the spirit and letter of transportation safety laws. Professionals at JB Hunt should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all applicable DOT and FMCSA regulations. When evaluating process optimization initiatives, the primary filter should be regulatory compliance. If an optimization proposal has the potential to negatively impact compliance, it should be rejected or modified. The next step involves assessing the impact on driver safety and well-being, ensuring that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of rest periods or safe operating practices. Finally, the potential for operational and financial benefits can be evaluated, but only after the compliance and safety hurdles have been cleared. This hierarchical approach ensures that JB Hunt operates legally, ethically, and sustainably. Question 18. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new automated routing software for JB Hunt's fleet could significantly reduce fuel consumption and optimize delivery times. However, concerns have been raised about the software's potential impact on driver adherence to hours of service, hose, regulations, and overall road safety. Which of the following approaches best represents a professionally responsible and compliant method for JB Hunt to evaluate and potentially adopt this new technology? Option A. Implement the software with minimal driver training, relying on the software's automated alerts to ensure HOS compliance, and address any driver concerns or potential issues only if they become significant operational problems. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the software's compliance features with FMCSA regulations, assess its impact on driver fatigue and safety, and implement comprehensive driver training and feedback mechanisms before full deployment. Option C. Focus primarily on the projected cost savings and efficiency gains, with a secondary, brief review of the software's basic functionality, deferring any detailed compliance or safety assessments until after deployment. Option D. Prioritize the immediate implementation of the software to capture projected cost savings, assuming that the technology will inherently improve operational efficiency and compliance. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of the software's compliance features with FMCSA regulations, assess its impact on driver fatigue and safety, and implement comprehensive driver training and feedback mechanisms before full deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in logistics and transportation where efficiency gains from a new technology must be weighed against potential disruptions and compliance risks. JB Hunt operates within a highly regulated industry, and any process change, especially one involving data and operational flow, requires careful consideration of Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA regulations, and broader ethical considerations regarding data privacy and employee impact. The challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of cost savings and operational improvements with the imperative to maintain safety, compliance, and a responsible approach to technological adoption. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance above all else. This means thoroughly vetting the new routing software for its adherence to FMCSA hours of service, hose, regulations, ensuring it accurately records driving time, breaks, and duty status. It also necessitates assessing the software's impact on driver fatigue, road safety, and the potential for unintended consequences that could lead to violations. Ethical considerations, such as driver privacy and the potential for increased pressure to meet tight schedules, must also be addressed proactively. This approach aligns with the FMCSA overarching mission to improve safety and prevent commercial motor vehicle-related crashes. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the projected cost savings without a thorough review of the software's compliance features and safety implications is professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the fundamental regulatory requirement to operate safely and in accordance with HOS rules, which are designed to prevent driver fatigue and accidents. Such an approach risks significant penalties, operational shutdowns, and reputational damage if violations occur. An approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over driver training and feedback is also flawed. While rapid adoption can seem efficient, it can lead to misuse of the technology, increased errors in data logging, and driver resistance, all of which can compromise safety and compliance. The FMCSA emphasizes the importance of driver understanding and adherence to regulations, which is facilitated by proper training. An approach that assumes the software will automatically ensure compliance without independent verification is negligent. Technology is a tool, and its effectiveness depends on proper configuration, ongoing monitoring, and human oversight. Relying solely on the software's claims without due diligence fails to meet the professional standard of care required in a regulated industry. Professional reasoning. Professionals in the transportation industry must adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential risks, safety, regulatory, operational, ethical, assessing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies. When evaluating new technologies, the process should begin with a clear understanding of applicable regulations, e.g., FMCSA hose rules, data privacy laws. A thorough due diligence process, including pilot testing and expert review, is crucial. Communication and collaboration with drivers and relevant stakeholders are essential to ensure successful and compliant implementation. The ultimate decision should be guided by a commitment to safety, compliance, and ethical conduct, even if it means foregoing immediate cost benefits. Question 19. Investigation of a proposed new routing software for J.B. Hunt's fleet aims to reduce transit times and fuel consumption. Which of the following methodologies for evaluating this software's impact on operational processes is most aligned with ensuring strict adherence to U.S. federal and state transportation regulations? Option A. Conducting a pilot program in a limited geographic area, meticulously documenting all route changes, driver adherence to new schedules, and potential impacts on hours of service, while cross-referencing proposed routes against FMCSR and relevant state trucking laws. Option B. Relying solely on the software vendor's claims of regulatory compliance and efficiency improvement without independent verification or internal review. Option C. Implementing the software immediately and monitoring driver feedback for any operational issues, with adjustments made reactively as problems arise. Option D. Prioritizing the fastest implementation of the software across the entire fleet to achieve immediate cost savings, with regulatory compliance checks deferred to a later, unspecified date. Correct answer is C. Implementing the software immediately and monitoring driver feedback for any operational issues, with adjustments made reactively as problems arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for J.B. Hunt employees tasked with optimizing logistics processes. The core difficulty lies in balancing efficiency gains with the imperative to adhere strictly to all applicable U.S. federal and state transportation regulation, as well as internal company policies designed to ensure safety and compliance. A hasty or incomplete approach to process optimization can inadvertently lead to violations, risking significant penalties, operational disruptions, and damage to J.B. Hunt's reputation. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement changes that are not only cost-effective, but also fully compliant. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that have been thoroughly vetted for regulatory compliance and safety impact. This includes consulting relevant regulations such as the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, and any specific state-level trucking laws that might apply to J.B. Hunt's operations. The proposed optimizations must be evaluated against these standards to ensure they do not compromise driver hours of service, vehicle maintenance, cargo security, or any other regulated aspect of transportation. This proactive, compliance-first methodology is essential for maintaining operational integrity and avoiding legal repercussions. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed or cost savings without adequate regulatory consideration is professionally unacceptable. For instance, implementing a new dispatch system that inadvertently encourages drivers to exceed their legal driving hours to meet tight deadlines would violate FMCSR concerning hours of service, HOS. Similarly, a process change that reduces the frequency of mandated vehicle inspections to save time would contravene FMCSR on periodic inspections and maintenance, creating safety hazards and legal liabilities. Another flawed approach might involve altering load securement procedures to expedite loading, potentially violating regulations on cargo securement and risking accidents. These failures stem from a lack of due diligence regarding regulatory requirements and a disregard for the safety and compliance obligations inherent in the transportation industry. Professionals tasked with process optimization at J.B. Hunt should employ a structured decision-making framework. This framework begins with a thorough understanding of the current process and its objectives. Next, it involves identifying potential areas for improvement, followed by a rigorous assessment of each proposed change against all relevant U.S. federal and state regulations, as well as J.B. Hunt's internal compliance policies. This assessment should include consulting with legal and compliance departments. Only those optimizations that demonstrably enhance efficiency without compromising safety or regulatory adherence should be considered for implementation. Continuous monitoring and periodic reevaluation of implemented processes are also crucial to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 20. Risk assessment procedures indicate that J.B. Hunt's current driver dispatch process may be experiencing delays impacting delivery times. To address this, a proposal suggests implementing a new automated dispatch system that prioritizes speed and driver utilization. Which of the following approaches best aligns with J.B. Hunt's operational and regulatory responsibilities? Option A. Immediately deploy the new automated dispatch system after a brief review of its technical capabilities to expedite the dispatch process and reduce operational costs. Option B. Implement the new system with a focus on driver utilization, assuming that drivers will manage their own compliance with hours of service regulations within the new system's framework. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed automated dispatch system, ensuring it fully complies with all Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) regulations, including hours of service, electronic logging device (ELD) requirements and safety protocols, before any implementation. Option D. Prioritize the cost savings associated with the new system, making minor adjustments to the dispatch process to accommodate the system's limitations, with compliance checks to be performed post-implementation. The correct answer is A. Immediately deploy the new automated dispatch system after a brief review of its technical capabilities to expedite the dispatch process and reduce operational costs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because J.B. Hunt, as a large transportation and logistics company operating within the United States, is subject to stringent federal regulations governing its operations, particularly concerning safety and efficiency. The challenge lies in balancing the need for rapid process improvement with the absolute requirement to adhere to these regulations. A hasty or incomplete approach to optimizing a critical process like dispatching can inadvertently lead to noncompliance, potentially resulting in significant fines, operational disruptions, and damage to the company's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes are not only effective, but also fully compliant with all applicable laws and guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven analysis that prioritizes regulatory compliance and safety. This means meticulously reviewing the existing dispatch process to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, but critically, evaluating any proposed changes against the backdrop of relevant U.S. Department of Transportation regulations, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration (FMCSA) rules, and any internal J.B. Hunt safety protocols. The chosen solution must demonstrate a clear understanding of how the optimized process will maintain or enhance compliance, ensuring that driver hours of service are respected, vehicle maintenance records are properly managed, and all loads are dispatched according to legal weight and dimension limits. This proactive integration of regulatory considerations into the optimization process is paramount for ethical and legal operation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and cost reduction without adequate regulatory review would be professionally unacceptable. For instance, implementing a new dispatch software without verifying its compatibility with FMCSA electronic logging device (ELD) mandate would be a significant regulatory failure, risking violations of hours of service rules. Similarly, streamlining driver assignment without considering the impact on fatigue management or ensuring proper pre-trip inspection protocols are maintained would violate safety regulations. Another flawed approach might involve bypassing established safety checks or documentation requirements in the name of efficiency, which directly contravenes the spirit and letter of safety-focused transportation laws. These failures stem from a lack of due diligence regarding the legal and ethical obligations inherent in the transportation industry. Professionals tasked with process optimization at J.B. Hunt should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. The next step is to map the current process, identifying pain points and areas for improvement. Crucially, before proposing any changes, a thorough impact assessment must be conducted, specifically evaluating how each proposed change aligns with regulatory requirements and safety standards. Pilot testing and stakeholder feedback, including input from compliance officers, are essential before full implementation. This systematic, compliance-first approach ensures that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of legal and ethical responsibilities.